What's up, you guys? So this is not one of my normal videos. There's no explaining artwork here. I will be drawing on screen, how you're seeing now, except I'll be talking about the show and giving it my review. In October, I like to watch a bunch of scary movies, at least once a day, and post my review of it on Instagram story. But I figured, hey, this would be a good way to post more videos on my YouTube of me drawing, and I get to do these reviews as well. Two birds, one stone type of thing. So yeah, review time. Also, funny story, this is actually my second time recording this, and this is a much more condensed version because originally I recorded for almost 2 hours of nonstop ranting about the show, and even after cutting it down, I couldn't get it below an hour. I wasn't going to do that to y'all, so I had no choice but to write it out on a proper script that I am currently reading, and hopefully it helps with time. So, the condensed version. First things first, what I loved about the show. I love the show's title intro. Simple, iconic. I tend to skip intros because they suck, or they're too long, or they're really loud, or they're just plain old bad. But I never skipped this intro. It was great. I also loved the 80s theme. I loved seeing the style, the furniture, the cars, the clothes, like just all of it. I also loved the D&D lore of it. I do not play D&D, but I wish. It looks fun. I do love board games and I love storytelling, so seeing them use D&D and tie it into the monsters and the concept of the whole show was very clever. I love Dustin and Steve. Best characters in the show, hands down. I love how even though it was just 4 boys at first, a little group of guys, the show went on adding characters to the crew. For example, Nancy, Steve, Hopper, Jonathan, Robin, Erica, Max, and so on. You still ended up loving every single character just as much. Like, not one focus was taken away from anybody. The fact that they kept you liking so many characters like that was very well done. There was quite a few scenes I loved, like the Eddie and Dustin scene, the scene where Steve is getting attacked by Demobats and he jumps into the ocean. I love the scene that Scoops Ahoy, the scene where Dustin calls Mike's dad useless. That was hilarious. The scene where Robin and Steve are captured by the Russians. That was also hilarious. The scene where the boys are dressed up as Ghostbusters. That was awesome. The smuggling route and the ration thing going on in season 5. That was awesome. Robin and Steve in the radio station doing their show with Steve doing the sound effects and stuff in the opening of the last season. That was a great scene too. Hopper ripping the head off of the Demogorgon in the prison. That was awesome. Those are a few off the top of my head, but there was quite a few scenes that I liked. So now, things I did not like. Let's start with the characters I did not like. I didn't like the character 11. I think she was the most useless character in the whole show. After season 1, about halfway through season 2, I was already hoping that they would kind of kill her off already. I enjoyed Mike's dad's presence on the show much more than 11's. Honestly, at least that dude was funny whenever he was on screen, and he was literally useless. Dustin even said it at one point. It was a joke. It was hilarious. All she did was, talking about 11, all she did was absolutely nothing to the very end. The rest of the cast constantly putting their life at risk to then have her come out of nowhere at the very end and push the monster. And then at one point she loses her powers. Like, useless with powers, and then you don't have your powers. Like, why is that character around? I also did not like her sister. I think the character and that whole storyline of her in season 2 and then bringing her back in season 5 should have never happened. I think it was pretty bad. The story was terrible. The background was terrible. The whole thing of it was just bad. I did not like the whole U.S. military crew thing going on at the last season. I think that they should have just kept the Russians in there. I will get to that later. But this crew I'm speaking about is the one that includes like Dr. K and the dude that got his face burned and the other one that got his head blown off, and those guys. They sucked. I don't care about them. The whole concept of that whole U.S. military thing was just terrible. I was not a fan of Robin's love interest. They introduced her way too late into the show. It's the very last season. A lot's going on. I don't think she's important enough to bring her in that late. You know, at least not at the very end. And then at the very end of the show, actually, like, she's nowhere to be seen. Like, they broke up or something. Nobody knows. She kind of just seemed pointless to bring her in. It didn't make sense to have her there. If she was introduced maybe a whole season earlier and they utilized her throughout those last 2 seasons more, then I probably would have changed my mind. I did not care for Dipshit Derek, another character that they just kind of just threw in last minute, and they gave him way too much to do. I feel like they should have just focused on Holly and Holly helping the kids get out and all that stuff, and kind of just scratch the whole hallucinating thing, but that's a whole other thing. I was not a fan of the Russian Terminator wannabe dude. I get it, it's a homage to the Terminator, but still, it was really bad. If he was kept for just maybe 1 episode for like a fight or 2, that would have been fine. But he was dragged out way too many episodes. They should have killed him off real fast. The scientist, the Russian scientist that Murray, Joyce, and Hopper were interrogating. Yeah, I didn't like that character either. He was dragged out way too much also. They could have gotten that info out of him in like 2 episodes and then just killed him off. I didn't see the need to have him there for so long. And I definitely didn't like Vecna. He was a big baby. He did not use his powers to the maximum potential that he had. It was such a waste. He should have been making people hallucinate and all this stuff like he did with Hopper and the barrels. He should have been doing that from the very beginning. Not giving a couple kids headaches or, trying to possess Billy. That was just all dumb. He was going very easy on everybody, and it was frustrating to watch from the very beginning. A few other things I didn't like that aren't exactly about characters. I did not like the whole Russians thing not going longer. I did not like the Russians no longer being around towards the end of the show. They kind of just disappeared. Like nobody, like they went to Russia or something. I don't know, but they didn't use the Russian concern all the way to the very end of the show. I'll get into depth about that in a little. I also did not like the Abyss area, the whole second world part. It was pretty bad. There was no monsters. There was no threat. The only threat there was Vecna and his little cocoon and the fact that it was a desert. So it must have been extremely hot, which makes no sense because apparently this mind flayer thing liked the cold and they should have just kept it cold. Like keep that whole same color palette, color grade going on like they did in Upside Down. Speaking about the whole Abyss and Upside Down area, the whole big fight at the end with Vecna, that wasn't a big fight at all. That was very fast, anticlimactic. It was just very boring. I was dozing off at one point. There should have been a much bigger fight with a hell of a lot more creatures. Potentially even deaths or major injuries would have made that scene insane. I'll get into details about that later. Another thing I did not like was the underground mall Russian lab thing. That was random as hell. They could have just kept them all for like secret deliveries and meetings and stuff like they did before in the beginning of the season, like how they were mentioning, and they were using that to like avoid suspicions towards the actual Hawkins lab. Instead of having a whole underground lab at the mall, it's just random. I did not like the whole breaking into a Russian prison thing. It was unrealistic, and I know that, the whole realism thing goes out the window with these demo creatures and stuff, but they could have broken him out of a different facility, not the scariest Russian prison in the middle of freaking nowhere. That was a stretch. I did not like Will's coming out scene. It was way too long, way too dramatic, and it really bothered me that none of his friends said, "Hey dude, we know what you're trying to say. It's okay. We already knew. We were just waiting for you to tell us. Let's go kill some monsters. We love you anyway. Who cares?" Like, not even Mike had anything to say, and Mike had slick comments throughout the show. Like, what the hell? They could have done that scene so much better. I also did not like Max and Holly's podcast moment, like everybody's joking around, saying that it was as long as a podcast episode. It took too long, and that should have been a conversation they were having on the way there. That whole scene was just terribly written. I did not like that they killed Bob so soon. He was there for 1 season. I feel like he should have been introduced maybe in season 1 and then killed off in season 2, or introduced in season 2 and then killed off in season 3. It was fine to kill him off. That's fine. Just a bit more time with him would have been nice. Also, did he not have any family or friends or anybody to miss him after he died? Like, he just passed away and nobody said anything. I also did not like that none of these other parents are involved. Yeah, we see Joyce and we see Mike's parents every once in a while, and then Dustin's mom, hysterical mom. But That's about it. Like, we don't see anybody else. We're Lucas's parents. We're Steve's parents. Robin's parents. Like, no, all these other kids are just running around almost dying. Like, they don't ask why they're coming home with bruises and stuff. I also did not like that they made Joyce way too much of a crybaby. I get it. She lots of things going on with her. Scared about lots of stuff. They made it too much. And by season 3, I was really annoyed of her. I still liked her as a character. She was nice and all that stuff, but like, she got really annoying at times. I also didn't like that they made Murray too annoying in the last season. They tried really hard to make him funny. Like, every time he smuggled something in, like, it was too much. It stopped being funny. He was great when he was first introduced, but after a while, just meh. What else? I think that's more or less the things I didn't like. I did mention a few things that I loved. There's more things. I'm going based off of what I wrote and what I can think off the top of my head. But yeah, moving on to things I would have changed, for example, that I didn't already mention. Like, right off the top, I would have removed the whole U.S. military thing in the last season. I would have made it the Russians instead, because when the show first started, everybody was concerned about Russians and the spies and all that stuff. They could have dragged that out all the way to the end, and then it would have been like a very nice tribute to Red Dawn, you know, where like the Russians take over and it's like a group of kids trying to save the town. I would have also liked to see Billy and Eddie together, actually. They would have been a great kick-ass outcast crew where just misunderstood dudes just beating up creatures together. That sounds cool as hell. I would have liked to see that. I would have also liked to see Christy and Eddie come into the show earlier and give them more than just a season. Definitely give Christy more than just an episode or two. I would have built up their relationship. Still killed off Christy, but I would have adjusted their story and, like I said, given her more screen time, possibly turning them into maybe a little romance after her and her boyfriend break up, so that when she does die, Eddie is heartbroken, and it gives her boyfriend a bigger reason to hate Eddie, like he did in season 4. What else? I would delete that whole sister storyline and character, like I mentioned, 11's sister. I would never put that in there ever. Will should have unlocked or noticed his abilities to tap into his powers much earlier in the show. He was 10 times more powerful than 11 was right away. He killed 3 Demogorgons in less than a minute from different locations at the same time. Meanwhile, 11 is struggling to open doors. I don't understand. They could have had him unlock his powers a bit earlier, not from the very beginning, but something like end of season 2 or midway through season 3 or something. He builds it up in season 4, and then in season 5, he's over here even more powerful than 11. That would have been great. I would have liked to see more characters die too, either sooner or later or something. It really depends on the character. For example, like I said, Bob could have been there longer and then he could have died later or type of thing, but definitely killed him off after more screen time. Steve's douchey friends should have died along with Barb that night, not just Barb. Those kids were terrible. The scientist, like I mentioned, should have died sooner. They didn't need to keep him that long. The Russian Terminator, same thing, would have killed them much sooner. Dr. K, all those sidekicks that she had and all those military people, I would have killed them off sooner too. It actually wouldn't have put him in there at all anyway, but if they were, I would have killed them off. I would have been okay with Murray dying, being taken at the end. I wasn't too crazy about him towards the end, but at the beginning I liked him, but if he passed towards the end, I wouldn't have been bothered. I would have been totally okay if 11 was gone sooner. Okay if Will sacrificed himself at the end to close the Upside Down, like the good old Will the Wise, saving the world instead of 11. That would have been interesting. I would have been okay with Billy dying sooner, or instead of protecting 11, he could have protected Max, or dying in some epic battle like Eddie did. I would have given him a better storyline. I would have still killed off Christy, like I said, but just later, more screen time. I would have taken her boyfriend out and all those jock friends of his. I would have taken them all out, not just one. Mike's dad, I feel like he should have died protecting the mom when she got attacked. The 2 cops that Hopper worked for, yeah, they would have been funny. not funny to die, but like in a funny death. Like they were pretty funny on their own. So if they died in like a funny scene, I wouldn't have been upset. Jonathan and Will's dad should have been one of those guys that was taken out like randomly, you know, because wrong place, wrong time type of thing. And I want to say a bunch of civilians in town, because these creatures, you know, they need to feed and stuff. Like, I don't understand why more civilians weren't killed. Like the video store dude that hired Steve and Robin, he could have been one of them. Not sure. I feel like the show should have had more deaths. And I think that's it. That's the condensed version, at least, you know, from all the bullet points that I wrote down. I give this show an overall 8 out of 10. Realistically, it's more of a 7.5, but I don't do half points. And I don't feel like it deserves a 7 because I do like the show a lot. So I round it up to 8. So 8 out of 10. I do plan on doing more of these when I get the chance. I appreciate you guys for watching and listening. I don't think I'll do it for every single thing that I watch, but I'll see what I can come up with and, you know, which shows I want to focus on or movies or whatever. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Check out my channel. Leave me a like and a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the show. Thanks again. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.